also a professor at UFRJ and DRI Open University. Jaime Seixas de Fonseca is a researcher of this project, the project Pluralism, Democratization, and Electoral Integrity in Mozambique, and specializes in statistics and probabilities, multivariate cultural analysis, and he is a junior professor the Institute of Social Science, Political Sciences, which is from the University of Lisbon. We are very pleased to have you both here with us to present results of your book. More specifically, now I understand the book itself, which will be presented some parts of the book with the audience. You will have roughly 40 minutes to present, and then we shall have some more minutes for discussion and debate. And now, thank you so much for being here in presence. And now over to you, Nuno and Jaime, to present the main findings of this book. Thank you so much for joining.
We split the presentation between us. So I think I'll do a first introduction on the project, and we will start with the methodology and then proceed. Okay, so this project started in 2018. It extended, it was finished in 2021, but then because of the COVID, we had to extend a few more years. We applied circa 5,000 questionnaires in all the provinces of Mozambique and all the provinces of Angola also. So we tried to assess perception of electors in both countries, and then in the post-election period, of course, in 2019 in Mozambique and 2022 in Angola. The project had other outputs as well. We have all of them available in our website of the project, which is www and then P-DEIAM.com. And you can access all the books. They are for free, free download. We had 3 books. This one is the third and the last. The first was this one in Portuguese. The struggle continues. The reaction will not pass. And then we had another one in English, African Modern Liberal Democracy, in the 21st century. And then the third one, this one that we are now presenting, that was supposed to come out a long time ago, but because of the COVID and all those problems, we had to can only present it now. Okay, so basically the project was this. I mean, this is the most recent stage of a very long project that I started in 2004 with Professor Andrade from the Catholic University of Angola. And by then, it was only a consortium between the University of Coimbra and the Catholic University of Angola. Then we started to extend and integrate a lot of researchers. And we had several stages. The first was on multi-party democracy, the transition. The second one was on civil society. And the third one was political economy in both countries. And then we had a lot of conferences all over the place, United Nations, European Union, SOAS in England, a lot of panels in the African Studies Association, in the US, and the project grew. And then this last stage, we got a funding from FCP and also from the Aga Khan Foundation that allows us to move on this project for the last year and to apply all these questionnaires. And it was a major logistic enterprise that we took over the years. We had partners in both countries, partners from the civil society. In Mozambique, the Central for public integrity, and then in Angola, the civic movement Mudei, they had already a team of players in the field, which allowed us to take advantage of that structure and to have all those questionnaires applied. It was a major effort, as you can imagine. 18 provinces in Angola and 11 provinces in Mozambique, including Cabo Delgado, which was already under stress with the security problem. So it was a major effort, but fortunately we made it to the end. Yeah, now there's only the last. Okay.
Já está aqui lá a vida, a ver se não está.
Well, nobody will be here. I interceded. Okay, Jean will present the methodology. We ask for question analysis, and then we will go quickly through the two cases I will present. É gravado mesmo?
Eu não iria, esqueci.
Não, mas é outra gravada.
O que estava aí era apenas o livro, mas já vai apresentar o seguinte slide para o.
Já trouxe. Ok.
Provavelmente receberam.
I will leave copies of the books to the library, so I have access to the presentation.
Could you repeat, please, the address of the website?
Okay, it's www.p-deiam.com.
P-D-E-I-A-M.
It's the initials of pluralism, democratization, and electoral integrity in Angola and Mozambique.
Perfect, thank you.
It's here, if there is any mistake from the view in the ICS website, there's the,
Yes.
there's
It's
the
there.
information.
Okay.
In the main advertisement of the ICS for the conference. A link to the site.
I think it's now showing. Yeah,
Anyone from Angola and Mozambique here? Dave? No? And most of them are students from your PhD program, is that it?
but also researchers.
Also researchers from the
Yeah.
ICS.
So I want to thank you so much, of course, for presenting, but also for presenting in English, as most of our students are international and otherwise they wouldn't be able to follow the presentation. Thank you also so much for that info. And now that we have solved some of the technicalities of this, we can now start with the presentation by Jaime. So, let me talk to you. Está apresentado.
And of the about the methodology, we use the questionnaire service in Angola. There were less 2,911 voters in all the 18 provinces, and in Mozambique, 2,047 voters in all 11 provinces. the questionnaire was formed with two sections. Section A, the basic socio-demographic variables, and in section B, all the interests of the community, voting intentions, and so on. About data analysis, we used univariate analysis for all the questions, descriptive analysis, and we used latent class models, a multivariate technique, in order to become knowing the clusters of the voters in each section. These models, LCM, are probabilistic statistical approach, and the traditional latent cluster analysis is deterministic statistics, and we can see some advantages of LCM. About nature, they are statistical probabilistic techniques. The measure is always probabilities, and cluster analysis use algorithm. Concerning the type of variables, LCM leads well with categorical and continuous, and usually the cluster analysis use continuous variables. The assignment to groups is probabilistic for LCM and deterministic for cluster analysis. Both provide identification of item groups. About interpretation, similar types or profiles for LCM and similar groups for cluster analysis. I think the unique disadvantage of LCM is about assumptions. Cluster analysis, well, for cluster analysis, there is no assumptions, and the LCM likes to have the assumption of the local impedance. I'm going to present very quickly an example to understand the type of probabilities used by these models. This table shows us the estimates of the model differs, and we only have probabilities. Here we have the probabilities of belonging to each cluster, and all the other probabilities are conditional probabilities. For instance, this probability 0.7 is the probability of an answer yes, given that he or she was classified at cluster 1. Next probability is the probability of the same answer yes, given that she or he was classified at cluster 2. The question is, yes is a characteristic of which of the three clusters? Because this is the biggest completely in this line, yes, will be a characteristic of cluster 1. In some way, 0.5 is, because this is in line 2, the biggest probability, and no, it will be a characteristic of the cluster 3. And we have the result of this this revolution here, that profiles of the 3 clusters, and as we said, yes, is one characteristics of cluster 1, no cluster 3, and doesn't no answer cluster 2. Well, about this question, it is very sad, the answers in these 3 cluster 3. Okay, this was the 3 clusters given by LCM with these variables we use. And now we can ask that which voters are in cluster 1, cluster 2, and cluster 3. This is one advantage of LCM, that is the use of covariates or characterization variables. We use here sex, age, and education, and we know now that in cluster 1 we are mainly women, in cluster 3 mainly men, and we understand now better these answers. We have these ages in cluster 1, and I emphasize the high level of education is in cluster master's degree. And about Angola and some analysis we made, that's all.
Great. So let me.
This is scary, or?
I need. Are you going to present? No, after. What's next?
Next is the analysis Bolivariano.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, this will be. This will probably be easier for you to understand the structure of the book. I'll go swiftly. In order for you to see the structure of the book and what Jaime was saying, because he's a man from the statistics, sometimes they get very hard to understand. Anyway, so he presented the methodology, and then we have the data analysis. We have the first section, which was the biography and the socio-political and the economic analysis of the sample, which has the basic data, which is age, gender, are they from the rural or urban areas, so on and so forth. And then we have the socio-political and electoral analysis of the dimensions that we asked, and the covariables, which is a combination of those variables, and the cluster analysis that Jaime told you about. So the first structure, which is the same from the two cases. The structure. The first is on the specific questions we asked to the voters, interest for politics, and you have a univariable analysis and then a multivariable analysis, which gathers the voters and the answers in clusters in order for us to understand, for instance, the voters more interested in politics, are they women, are they young, are they men and women, and so on and so forth. So the group, in order to determine a profile of the people who answer, and if we can find a cluster, a group, some similar characteristics. So each and every question, we have both analysis, univariate and multivariate. So interest for politics, who they voted for and why, access to the information, and the performance of what they think about the performance of the media, trust in the electoral management bodies and judicial organs, electoral campaign, day of vote. Then we had several questions for each of these questions, results and electoral disputes, gender questions in the electoral process. And then we move to do the same with Mozambique, with the second case, which is the same. Okay, but both cases are structured in the same way. The questionnaires were basically the same, although from the first case, which was in 2019, Mozambique, to the second, we had some changes due to the specificities of the case, and also because we also learned from the first questionnaire that some questions were probably redundant and so on. But basically, the questionnaire was the same in order to allow us at the end to compare in some way both cases. Okay, and so it was chapter 3, in which we have similarities and contradictions between the two cases on the multivariate analysis on those cases. And then we have the final conclusions. That is the structure of the book. So I will now start with the Angolan case very swiftly in order for you to understand how it went and the purpose. The main finding, of course, it's planning to bring a PowerPoint with tables, but there are so many tables that a massive PowerPoint. It's probably easier to go swiftly through the book and the share. So, try presented methodology. Then we have the. So this is the examples of the questions in the sections. For instance, interest for politics. How they voted, which party they voted in previous elections. Did you change your vote? Why? Did you have gifts for voting? Which party has given more gifts to the people who voted? So we had a lot of questions to each of those main items that I presented you before: access to the information to vote, and performance of the media. For instance, knowledge on the party and candidates' manifestos or programs, how the media beneficiated a party or a candidate, which media beneficiated parties or candidates, and which parties or candidates were more privileged by the media. Problems on the electoral census on the municipality, trust in the electoral management body and their organs. What to do in order to improve the electoral management body, and courts and the electoral management body obey to someone while judging problems of parties in elections. Cases where courts and the electoral management body was partial. So it was a 5-page questionnaire which was very detailed, and we did not only ask people the most basic things, but sometimes we even asked them what to do in order to improve the functioning of the system. Where do you see is the problem? Which solution would you give? Which is more than only to ask them those simple questions. This was a conscious option that we had. We could only ask, and Jaime at first he told us, well, it's much easier to treat statistically if you have questions like 0 to 5, and you don't give them too much room for them to explain or to go into more detail and so on and so forth. Well, but there are already other projects that deal with that kind of questionnaire. We wanted to go further in order to have the opinion and the more subjective perspective of the voters. Well, it was an option. It is much more difficult to treat data in such kind of questionnaire, but it was our option. We decided that in order to have that kind of closed questionnaire, we already have other projects doing that, so it wouldn't be much difference for us to have our questionnaires in the field. So day of voting, problems in your assembly of vote. Did you knew before where to vote? Did you vote near your house? How much time did it took to get you to the voting table? Identification of the voting table in the electoral register. How was the prevention for people to vote multiple times? People on the table, voting table, had any party sign? Was there any electoral propaganda inside the assembly of voting, and so on and so forth. So it was a very detailed. It took us very time to treat this such data, but I think in the end you have a lot of information, and then you go through all of those tables. You will see several possibilities to cross data and to have some other findings that you usually don't find in other questionnaires that have more limited questions and possibilities of answers. So the first section was on the biography, the data and social, political, economic data of the sample in Angola, how they were distributed by age, and then frequency, percentage. You have by age, for instance, in Angola, from 18 to 25, most of them were between 26 to 45 years old. That is the distribution of the voters that we questioned. Distribution by sex, men, women, other. Then there you have. We had more women replying our questionnaires in Angola than men, which is normal because most of the according to the last census, most of the population is female. Distribution by scholarity, and we have it. We have 26.5%. That's okay, so you have that kind of update in the first part of the questionnaire, and then you enter the more specific. Okay, in the case of Angola, interesting to note that most of the people who replied said they are from the MPLA, which is quite interesting when you get to the comparison further down between those who voted for the MPLA and those who voted for UNITA, which is the main party of the opposition. So that it was the distribution. They declare themselves as being sympathizers of the party in power, the MPLA. Okay. Are you interested in politics? Most of them said yes. Okay, 34% said yes. Very interested. 29 interested. Not that much interested. 18.8. Not at all interested. 14.8. Do you trust politicians, parties, candidates? Most of them said, I trust, 41.7%. I trust not in too many politics, 46. So most of them don't trust, they trust in a few politicians, sorry. And then, do you trust the party? So in the MPLA, 47 said, I trust a lot. 25 said, I trust little, and 26 said, I trust absolutely not. UNITA and all the other parties, they have it. And then trust in the candidate, João Lourenço, which is the president of the Republic now, and is the president of the MPLA. I trust a lot, 50.2%. Trust little, 23%. Adalberto, which is the main opposition leader from UNITA, 22%. I trust a lot, 39%. I trust little. And then you have what Jaime was trying to explain, the cluster analysis, which will trace the profile of those who answered about all these questions about interest in politics, and then you have the estimates for each cluster, and we found 3 major clusters. We don't have time to go in much detail through that, but can have the explanation on because we had all these questions about scholarity, about rural, urban areas, the main language they talked. So, and then if they are married or not, which party they belong, and so on and so forth. And then you have the profiles of those who answered on this main question on interest of politics. So to each one and every section, every item, we did this kind of analysis individually on each item, and then we would cross all the variables in order to find these clusters, and then you have these groups that we found, if they are mainly women or men, which age groups are them, what kind of scholarity they have, and so on and so forth, which is very important in order to see the profile of the people who voted for the MPLA, the UNITA, or some other smaller parties. So are we reaching the?
Yeah, we're reaching the 45 in 5 minutes.
Okay,
So
5 minutes.
since you also want to talk about Mozambique, I don't know how divine work.
Okay.
Another 10
So, which is something I would like to show you. For instance, according to our questionnaires, most of the people said, although they said they are sympathizers of the MPLA, according to our results, UNITA or Adalberto da Costa Júnior is the leader, he would have a percentage of voting between 36.7 to 40.3% of the voting. And João Lourenço, the president of the MPLA, would have 27 to 30%, meaning that the MPLA, according to our questionnaires, lost the election. Okay? In order for you to compare with the official results you have there, the official results you have in that line, João Lourenço got 51.70% of the voting, while our questionnaires say he would only get between 27 and 30%. And UNITA got 43, almost 44% of the voting. Then you have all the results for the other member parties, meaning that our questionnaires say the contrary to what factually officially happened with the election. We have the same discrepancy in Mozambique, although in Mozambique our questionnaires say Frelimo would win, okay, but not with that amount, that difference that actually happened according to the official results. So our partner in the field, the civic movement MUDEI, also had a questionnaire before the election, and the results were quite similar. So the MPLA would lose the election, okay? And other projects as well had reached the same discrepancy. So meaning that probably the opposition has some point when they say that there might have been fraud. They say this since the elections in 2012, okay, in Angola, and the same in Mozambique, of course. So basically, if you don't have much time, I just say that we did the same for the Mozambican case, and then we tried at the end to compare both cases, but now we have too much information, very much detail, but you have here the structure and the main objective, and some of the findings in one of the questions. You have several others according to gender and so many others that are very useful to understand the functioning of the electoral system. And of course, the main problems of these systems in order to access the information, party funding, so much more. There are a lot of problems that were found in this research that are explained in the books. We do not have time to go details through all of that. So we don't have much time.
But if you need another 5 minutes, maybe if you want to select something on Mozambique to show to the audience, because you want that.
So we did the same, maybe if I
want to show maybe so that the audience also gets to see something on Mozambique.
sorry for using all biases, but
No, it's fine. It's just because it's comparative to
from
be.
Angola, usually, and it was the first check. Okay. Mozambique, we did the same analysis. Okay. And in order for us to have the sample, to determine the sample, we went through the last census in both countries. Okay. So we tried to be as representative as possible, the same things, polarity, urban, rural, place of voting, where are they from, where do they live, which municipality, if they are from the rural areas and they vote in urban areas or vice versa, single, married, and so on and so forth. Let's go to the questions and to the same. Also, we had we asked for the revenues of these households. Where do they work? And here, which party do you sympathize? Again, comparing with the Angolan case, and most of them said they were from Frelimo, the party in government. Okay, like in Angolan case. However, when so they interested in politics also, most of them, the majority, well, not that much interested, and interested are almost the same, 23% interested or little interested, no interest at all, 17%, very much interested, 15%, somehow interested, 12%. Do you trust the politicians and candidates? All those questions, and then we had again the cluster analysis, trying to find groups and profiles in voters, and see if I can find interest for politics. Okay, voting and the motives to vote. Party where you voted in the election of 2019. Most of them said I voted for Frelimo, 42%, for Renamo, 24%, and MDM, 14%. Then we have the comparison with the official results. The official results, this one's Philip Music from Frelimo. Got 73%. However, according to our questionnaires, he would have got only the 42%. Okay, so this is the discrepancy. Frelimo would won, but not with that expressive numbers that came out officially of 73%. Again, sustaining the opposition criticism that there was a lot of fraud. Okay, so basically what we did was this. You have a lot of data, a lot of detail, a lot of information, several clusters to each and every one of these items. You have the media. The media was biased, and the conclusion was yes, very much biased in favor of the incumbent, Frelimo in Mozambique and MDLA, Dash Lourenço in Angola. And so you have who gave more, of course, probably give more, had more gifts for the voters, and so on and so forth. So I think we don't have much more now, but again, the book will be available from tomorrow for complete and free downloads in our website, like all the other outputs of the project. And so you can access and go through this for free. Okay. Thank you so much. Maybe now
Thank you so much, Nuno and Jaime. I mean, it's a huge project with a lot of data, a lot of questions being asked, with really a lot of questions being asked, and I was looking forward to see more and more results of it and more analysis. That's why I asked for the Mozambique example, just because it's so rich in terms of data collection, and of course with a lot of potentialities, because there aren't that many post-electoral surveys or election surveys in African countries. So that alone is a major contribution. So thank you so much for the project, and of course the topics that the questionnaires cover and all the other aspects of it are really a great contribution to the field. So thank you so much for sharing, and for sharing the more methodological analysis of how you did the univariate and multivariate analysis. Now, given this information, I don't know if you want to ask anyone online and in the room wants to ask a question regarding this project. Let's stop sharing here. The results or
Maybe you can share the website and the project in order for them to have access to them.
yeah, I can put it here in the, but it is also in the abstract we share with everyone, so it's there. So in principle, we should be able to.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you want to, yes, please.
I have a question. Well, congratulations for the work. Very interesting and comprehensive. And my biggest curiosity was about the comparison between these two countries. In your could you give some spoiler of your conclusions in terms of the main differences and main similarities between Angola and Mozambique, which emerged from your research?
I'll collect another one and then we go by rounds. Is it okay? Anyone have another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting and it's a great job. And I'm curious about the maybe more theoretical question. As far as I understand, when we say about the political denialism, electoral denialism in Western context, so we suppose that it is some kind of deviation when we doubt the results of the election process, but in effect we can see the other situation, and in hybrid system this framework becomes problematic when we state that this gap between the electoral results and the people perceptions of these results exist. So my question is, how do you conceptualize distrust in elections in such countries as Angola and Mozambique and other hybrid regimes countries? How you conceptualize this distrust in political system and political and electoral results, especially in comparison with Western contexts? I'm curious about it. What is your theoretical framework process? Thank you.
Okay, let's see. The first question, the similarities and differences. Well, there are much more similarities than differences. And you can clearly see in both cases that usually the incumbents, the parties in power, do have a tendency to control the variables that to determine the results, that have a lot of impact in the results, namely the media. And it has become worse since the previous elections or the first elections in the 90s up to today. They are becoming in several aspects, like the lawfare or the electoral management bodies or some other aspects, they are being sophisticated. But in terms of the media, you can actually see how things have been more basic. Angola and Mozambique. At first, in the first elections, in Angola 2002 and 2008, and even the first elections of 1992, you could see some concern in order to at least be somehow trying to show more impartiality, or trying to at least give a perception of more plurality, although it was obviously the tendency to support incumbent. But in these two last elections, I mean, not the last election in Mozambique, but the last election was not in 2019. But in 2019, and even in before in Mozambique, you could see more rough control of the media, because they didn't concern. Nowadays, they don't have that much concern as they used to have. Is that a sign of what they are not concerned about that aspect? I don't know. But in the other, all the other variables, they are much more sophisticated with eventual fraud, much more sophisticated. They are streets ahead of the opposition. The opposition starts thinking how to overcome some obstacles they might create. So, I mean, the government is already ahead in figuring out other ways of suppressing those possibilities of being discovered or having their schemes and techniques dismantled. So, but in all the other, in that aspect of the media, I seem to be becoming much more basic, much concerned about what people say and see. So, and the perception of the people is that, of course, well, most of the media supports what party in power and the president wants, and most of the time they dedicate to the party in power, their programs, their projects, their events, and the mixture between the party and the state is obvious as it used to be, and the use of the state logistics to the electoral campaign and to the electoral process is as it used to be, and so and that is the perception of the people according to our questionnaires. It has become obvious. So in both cases, and I think it's also natural that both cases are very similar, because we have noticed that the Angolan regime usually sends a lot of people to Mozambique in order to see what the problems were, in order to adapt their own system. There's a lot of information sharing, and they are very much connected on that, especially warfare, how to gerrymandering, how to change the electoral division of the country in order to have more interests and so on and so forth. So we are not talking about, let's say, a rough regime, a rough authoritarian regime. No, we are dealing with rough authoritarian, sophisticated regimes that are concerned on how to manipulate all the possible variables in the most accurate way in order to get the results. So the similarities are much more than the differences. Probably the explanation is that they are very much attentive to what happens in one the other country. It is in all areas, like the civil movements, the youngster movements in Mozambique. In Angola, they were very much concerned with that. They send a task force to Mozambique to study that, to see what were the problems, how they were dealt with, and how can we prevent that in Angola. Because a lot of because the civil society also has access to information, and sometimes they want to replicate some movements that they see in Mozambique, and it was the case of that of P-DEIAM, which was a rapper in Mozambique. And in Angola, we also had some civil unrest. The party was very much concerned with that. So there is a lot of information sharing and cross information in order to see how to react. So and people do have that sense. People do perceive that, because we have so many elections, and nowadays people are already used to that. They already know that the TPA in Angola, the public television, gives 50-60% of the time to the MPLA, and the rest is distorted. They have some ways of filming, for instance, demonstrations of the opposition or rallies of the opposition, very much close in order not to in order to pass through the sense that there were not many people there. And from the MPLA, they have all those techniques of filming the crowds, in order to see that they are a lot more than they were, and so on. So all these techniques, people are already used to that. They know that the courts are under the control of the political parties. They always judge in favor of the party in power. They always discard the complaints from the opposition. That is obviously everybody knows it, and so people have this perception, which leads us to several other questions in terms of the opposition. How do they act? What strategies do they have to face this? But that is part of some of other books that we have. And the second question was on conceptualizing how do we conceptualize the difference between
I mean, how you conceptualize this situation in between the electoral results and the people's perceptions. Because I mentioned that in Western context, we can use the political cynicism, political denialism, but as far as I understand, these concepts are not relevant for this case in hybrids and authoritarian regimes, and we can see these people behavior is not as deviation, but as the reasonable behavior, because they can see that results are manipulated by the government.
Yes, I mean the difference between Western elections in terms of that those perceptions. And here you can trust the institutions, and I see that's not a problem of people distrusting the electoral results in most of the cases. Yes, I don't know if people in Hungary or some other countries that are now becoming more authoritarian have the same perception. I don't know if there are any studies on that, or if there are any reasons to more distrust in such electoral results or not. But here we can cross a lot of information and from the people, and also it's obvious. And if you go to the results of the Supreme Court in both cases, whenever they have to decide on the complaints of the opposition, I mean, everybody is already expecting them to support the official results and to discard any complaints, even when they are obvious. There are cases where you have, for instance, 5,000 voters in one municipality, and then you come out with 6,000 votes. What can you say? Well, in those cases, they say, well, it was because some people from other municipalities was probably voting on that. But that's not possible if you have electoral register, then you have to check each voter. But I mean, things obvious like that are usually discarded by the court. Well, but that was in one or two, it didn't affect the whole result. I mean, you always have that kind of arguments, and people now distrusting the judicial system. And if you go to the process of nominating of the judges from these courts, you will see constitutionally the president has the right to nominate the judges. So starting to nominate and to dismiss. So starting from that, you have autonomy and independence of the judicial system, which is basic to reliability and credibility of any such process. So with that, with the perception, with the obvious measurement of the time in the media by the government, between the government and the opposition, knows that you can feel and sense that there is a lot of room for fraud, and that the perceptions of the people do reflect that, especially after so many elections, repeating the same mechanisms and schemes. So the people do not trust the system, even those that say that they are from the MPA or they are from Frelimo. They know how it works. And it works very early in the process, like the registering of voting, like the necessity to change, for instance, the electoral areas. For example, the MPLA, they are now changing the electoral map in order to have more provinces in the rural areas, because they understood that in the urban areas they are losing a lot of votes. So if one province elects 5 members of parliament, independent from how many population you have. So if you have more provinces in the rural areas where you have more voting, you will get more deputies, even though you have you are less representative. You can have 3, 4, 5 million people in Rwanda, and they elect 5 members of parliament, and then you have 2 or 3 provinces with 1 million, and then they elect same 5 members of parliament. So you can actually play with with the system in order to benefit you. This is the legal way of doing things. There are probably other, not the legal ways also will be same. I mean, all these mechanisms do point us to possibility, at least large possibility for fraud. So the distrust in the system is very much the result of all this criteria we usually try to pick each of these items that we analyze. I don't know if I replied your question.
No. Shall we open a second round? Shall?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for the presentation. And I wish I had opportunity to read the book before, because what you have presented, shows to me that there is a lot of data. It's very, very important. I was part of the process in Angola in 2022. I bought it as well, and I was working as well for some things related to it. What really caught my attention is about the results that you got on the voters when it comes about the level of satisfaction of the people. And I saw there like the 3 majors line, that is satisfaction. I mean, very satisfied, and more or less satisfied. It seems that these 3 categories had more points compared to the others. I don't know if I'm wrong, but because if it's possible, I may check later. But if it's the case, I will say that the environment in Angola, specifically in the big cities like Luanda, Benguela, Lubango, Lubito, and the others, before in 2022, pre-election 2022, was like that most of the people were practically against of the ruling party, right? Which leads me to the question specifically. I mean, when I say people, I'm not saying specific group of people. I'm saying in general. Even some members of the ruling party, MPLA, they were against it because there was that fraction, that division between the former president, José Eduardo dos Santos, and the new elected, not the elected, but indicated president, that's currently the president of the Republic of Angola, João Lourenço. So some people internally in the party wanted another candidate, but somehow João Lourenço was the only one that was appointed by the former president to replace him the power. So my question will be specifically, because you say that you interviewed some people from MPLA, in which region of the country specifically have you interviewed these people? Because if it is in Luanda, I don't think the results are, they could be a little bit, a different one, or in other different provinces, major provinces, I may say, yeah, that's would be different. So I'm just curious to know in which places specifically have you interviewed these people that you can got these results. Yeah, thank you.
It's very short. Do you think the time that mediates the surveys in the elections could be one of the reasons of the difference in results?
So
The time mediates the elections and the surveys.
Uh-huh.
It could be one of the reasons to this difference of the results.
I don't think so. I don't think so because we asked them, who did you vote for in the election?
Mhm.
It was very specific. Who did you vote for? Even if they say, well, I voted for the MPLA, but now I wouldn't vote anymore.
Mhm.
That would be lead us to a different result. But they said, no, I voted for the MPLA. I voted for it. I voted for. So even if the questionnaires were applied a few months later, well, in the Mozambican case, the elections, the questionnaires were applied 2-3 months after the elections. And in Angola, 4, 5, 6 months after. Okay, but even so, people said, no, I voted for that election. And even in the previous elections, if they got the age enough to vote, I voted for. So we had the possibility to compare at least the 2 elections to see if they changed their voting.
Okay, there was two moments.
No, they were
Years after.
no. It was only after, but they were asked how did they vote in 2000,
Okay.
and how do they vote now, in order to see if they changed their voting direction. No, I voted for the MPLA by then, and now I changed to UNITA now in this election. I voted for UNITA in this election. So we have that kind of comparison. As for the question, we applied the questionnaires in all the 18 provinces, all the 18 provinces. I was trying to see, to give you the number of municipalities. Okay, we applied in 106 of the 164 municipalities. So our degree of confidence is 25%, okay, on the results. So we applied in most of the municipalities of the country. 106 to 164 are the totality, is a totality, so we applied to 106. And so we will explain the methodology of the questionnaire application, which was public places with a lot of people, markets, bus stops, following a count of 50 people between each people inquired, any people after the first refusal, and then again 50 people after the first successful application of an inquiry. And usually we applied a system that was random in order to door-to-door inquiry, which after a successful inquiry we would count 15 houses ahead after the first successful inquiry, and then we turn left and count another 10, and turn right, count another 5, and the questionnaire should be done in the opposite side of the street, and so on and so forth. So and there was a limit of interviews by people applying the questionnaire. So it was very rigorous in that item. So we applied to every province in Angola, 18 provinces, and all the 11 provinces of Mozambique, even and Cabo Delgado.
Shall we have a final one? Last comments or questions?
Just one thing, and we can sense that those differences between when we ask the people, are you from Rwanda? Where are you from? Where were you born? And where do you live? And where do you vote?
Yeah.
So we have that kind of.
That's a particularly very important as well.
They say, well, I'm from Bengal, but I'm now living in Rwanda and I voted for. So the tendency is that in the main urban areas, the voting is majority for the unit. I mean, in the whole country, our results pointed to a victory of UNITA, FPU, and most of the country, but the results, as you know, were different.
Sorry, what's the meaning of FPU? Unita FPU.
Frente Unida, FPU.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
It was UNITA and the smaller movements. FPU, okay, Frente Popular, Frente Patriótica Unida, Patriótica Unida, whatever. But was an informal, because it was not official, coalition between UNITA and two opposition parties that comes from previous election. It was not recognized as a coalition, so UNITA is the official name in the voting, because there is no FPU. It was not allowed by the courts. So, but even so, they have this informal agreement between the UNITA and the small parties how to divide the list of candidates. As you know, people they vote for the party, and the president of the party is automatically number one of the list, is automatically the president of the parliament. So Lorenzo will be the first name of that. And Alberto, the Quarta Junior, will be the first name of the UNITA list, and so if UNITA one will be automatically president.
Yeah.
Also for the final round, anyone else wants to ask questions? If not, maybe I'll just ask a few questions. So just to clarify, so the two surveys were conducted after the election in the
Yes.
two cases. And so my first point relates to something that you made it clear now, that you would ask people in the street for their voting intentions, public spaces. And I felt that maybe in some authoritarian settings, people are afraid to disclose their vote intention, and even if it is in a public space, they might feel a little bit constrained to share which party they voted for, and maybe they might not be as comfortable as possible to declare their real voting position. And also, maybe maybe the the immediate post-electoral period in both countries, which was quite polarized. Maybe there's a lot of information to which citizens have been exposed in the post-electoral period, which was quite polarized in both countries. And this perhaps could also have changed the way in which people, in retrospect, think about how they voted. Of course, this is not to disregard what you said, because you are knowledgeable of the two settings. And I assume that in both settings, there have been reports of fraud, not only in this election, but I mean, since transitions from war and to democracy, since the first post-war election. So in a sense, I wanted to ask you whether the first question would be on this, whether you think that in a way people might not be comfortable sharing their sincere voting, and that in retrospect, maybe by being exposed to different sources to different contexts and the results, maybe they have a different position vis-a-vis what happened in those elections. The second question would be on, you have a lot of data which points to many possibilities of things that you can still do apart from what you have shown us today, which is already very interesting. I wonder if, for instance, in terms of electoral integrity, what are the trends overall when you in terms of the citizens' perception? We know by heart by the way in which we follow the media in the two countries, the issues that usually come up around elections in these two countries. And I wonder whether there were spatial variations in a way, because I think one of the interesting things that having the representative samples, even if the N is not as high as it could be, because of course you are distributing the overall sample to different areas. But I wonder whether there were spatial differences that perhaps could connect to the different cleavages that exist in each country. I could speak about territorial cleavages, but also ethno-linguistic cleavages that somehow could mediate some of the experience, some of the values that citizens have, and some of their attitudes. And I think maybe the final question would be on since I don't know if you had the impression while conducting this survey, if you had the impression that that questionnaire was too, this is really methodological. You can have the feedback whether the instrument was too long or too sophisticated, because you said that when you first implemented it in Angola, then you revised it, some components, some questions in Mozambique. Did you felt that there were maybe some questions that were difficult to ask because you were in a setting with some authoritarian components that sometimes inform the way in which we plan our whole methodological approach? So I have any other questions, to be fair, but I'll just leave these ones to conclude. And if there are any other questions or comments, we shall stay here and in this last round give you and Jean the opportunity of this reality.
Okay.
Well, about the first one and the differences between Angola. No.
Honestly, I think I said I don't. It's so on so many components that I can't recollect the first, the second, and the third. to be honest, I don't know.
As far as I remember, the first was if the people.
I talked about the spatial variation. I talked about if people were comfortable doing the question
in public places.
in public places, if they would.
Oh yes. But this is about any question. The people said frequently that the people lie about the age. Simple question.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Representing
No.
the study. If they lie on that question.
No, I'm saying that in the general terms, we can distrust of each and every report.
I think the results are quite representative of the two populations. Several differences are known in our case, and the results go with this. About the trends, I think about Angola and Mozambique, we only can analyze trends for the same variable and some circumstances. There is no trend about Angola and Mozambique. Again, we can with good results, continue results, analyze the trend in Angola and analyze the trend in Mozambique. No mix to the world. We'll say.
Okay. I can also say about the risk of people not saying the truth because of the environment. Well, usually, even if we approach people in public places, they would not reply publicly with everybody on their side listening to what they were saying. Okay. They are the anonymous criteria was absolutely guaranteed to the replier, and we will approach them and take them to some other places and then present the questionnaire. Not if I would do differently, or if we would do differently in a new research. Yes, Jaime told me a lot of times, well, you should have done it differently here and there. And yes, it would be simpler to do not leave so many open questions to the people. Yes, it was too extensive. The questionnaire was too extensive. Some differences were not in terms of one or two questions were redundant, and we reduced them. But some others were simply had to do with the specificity of the country. For instance, after Mozambique, the Angolan election, people from the civil society would say, well, a way of controlling the fraud is we will start a movement that says that vote and sit, meaning that you vote and you sit in front of the voting assembly, in order to expect them to publish the resume of the voting outside, as the law says that you are obliged to. Okay, and so they started a campaign, vote and sit. So we decided to have a new question in the Angolan questionnaire, asking, did you vote and sit, expecting the result? Was something that was very specific to Angola and according to the electoral process in Angola. Was it useful? Well, some people said yes, we voted and sit, but then the police pushed us away and so on and so forth. And it was a very problematic campaign because that was in fact, that was the job of the opposition. The opposition is warned for years and years and years that they can control the voting simply by having delegates of the party in each and every voting assembly. Because the law says at the end of the voting, they have to open the ballot box and count the votes and have a list. You need 20 votes, MPLA, 25, and then each and every member of every political party in the table will have to sign that document, and that is the official document that goes to Luanda to the final count. Okay. So if you have a delegate in each and every table and you can photograph the document, you can have a parallel count with the official document. And then at the end of the election, you as the opposition, you say, well, we have here, we were not in each and every table in the country, but we have here 90% of the ATA since, which is the document that synthesizes the voting in each and every assembly, and our voting is our parallel count is this, and you have here the documents to prove. Okay, and in that case, the government has nothing to do. There was fraud or there wasn't. Okay, but the problem is that the opposition is warned about this, and they know about this possibility since 2012 at least. Okay, because one of the members was president of the electoral management body in 1922. Okay, he was then afterwards a member of the Constitutional Court. He said that it's very simple. You just have to prepare your delegates to be in each and every table of the country, or most of them. Okay, so it is your own work, opposition, to do. He said this, and he's not from the MPLA. He was from the FNLA originally. But the opposition didn't do their homework, and then at the end they came to the media and say, well, there was fraud. Okay, how do you prove it? Well, we have 70% of the documents of the table. Okay, show it to us. Okay, and then they went freshly to Facebook and to the other social media, gathering photographs of this and that in order to get. Some of them were fake. Okay, were fake. And then you lose all the credibility as an opposition. How can you present to the Constitutional Court a fake It means that you didn't do your work or your homework. You should have delegates. You did have. They should be prepared in order to take a photograph of the document. You did not. So in the end, you lose credibility as an opposition party. What can you say? But and then they went to this civil movement in order to ask them if they had copies of the voting, because people were supposed to sit outside and to take pictures of the document that was supposed to be announced. That it's not possible in order for you to, as an opposition party, to go and ask people of the civil society movements in order to give you one or two of these documents. That again was related to the fact that there were some specificities when we had to adapt the questionnaire to that. The other questions, I can't remember.
I think it's all covered.
Yeah, in the authoritarian environment, it's always possible that people feel constrained in these societies, and they will probably, for instance, in the Angolan case, they will probably say, well, yes, I'm a sympathizer of the MPLA, but then when they later on the questionnaire, if they ask, but who did you vote for? By then, they are probably more comfortable in order to say the truth because no one else is listening, he's alone, you don't know his name, and he might say, well, I voted for Vida, I voted for PRS or whatever. But there is always that risk. But even if that risk was a major risk, I mean, our results would have said that most of the people voted for the MPLA, and they didn't say that. Okay? Most of them said they voted for the opposition, which is a sign that they probably said the truth. Because if they were constrained, they would say they voted for the party in power, not for the opposition. So that is a sign that they probably said the truth. But I mean, in Angola and Mozambique, what we felt was that people are so tired of these fake processes that they just don't care anymore. They just say whatever. Please. That would be a problem probably in 2008, the first elections after the civil war in Angola, for instance, or the first or the second elections after the civil war in Mozambique. That would be a problem. People were much more afraid. Okay. Nowadays, I think they just don't care. They speak openly in the public transport against the government, against the president. Nowadays, they are fed up. Okay, that's my sense, but it's a more subjective perspective.
Thank you so much, Nuno and Jaime, for the presentation and congrats for the book. I hope the launching season goes well for you and President of the House. So that in present and hope to see you next week. When we will have the Cedars News lecture next year, so we won't be having a start seminar next week. So we will have the opening of the academic year, which of course has already started, but we just have Olivette from SOAS University, and she will be giving a lecture on African Europeans. So take the opportunity to come to take part because this is such an important moment in the academic life of our community. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much. See you next week.